Welcome to What's New in Creative AI October edition. And hello from Down Under. What are we doing in Australia, you're probably thinking? Well, topping up our suntans, of course. Well, not quite, but we're actually down here checking out the creative AI scene in Sydney, and we've been visiting South by Southwest whilst we've been here, where we've met with Getty Images, with Canva, and with Leonardo.ai.
With the Australian government.
And with the Australian government to bring you all the latest AI news. So, first up, Getty Images.
Okay, I'll tell you about this. So we met with Tom Turnbull, who actually is a fellow Brit, as are many people in Sydney. He's from Getty, and we saw a demo there of at South by Southwest of the new AI model that they developed with NVIDIA. So what is it like if you haven't tried it? So it is very easy to control, super simple interface. You can do different visual styles, a bit like Ideogram, if any of you've used that. So things like deep, shallow, vivid, neutral, dynamic, bold, those kind of things, easy commands. And there's also like all the tools are in one place. So things like extending the image, refining the image, having negative prompts as well, a bit like Midjourney. So what it's really good for is helping you sell concepts to your client like much more quickly, bringing something to life really fast. And also, because it's Getty, it's all commercially safe. So you know that you are safe from an IP point of view using the Getty Images interface. What do we think of it? So the image quality from what we saw is really good, but what we didn't see is any people in the images.
That's right.
So
they were just using
tested it on that.
Yeah, cityscapes and fantastical images, not actually anything human related.
Yeah. So when you see some testing there, what it's brilliant at is that the model, it doesn't, when you're prompting, creating your images, it doesn't use that data to then go back and train the model more. So it doesn't use the images you create to train it more. It pays royalties to the contributors, to the contributors to Getty Images, and you can also use like images, pre-shot images, and then modify them with AI using the interface as well. So it's not just within their library.
That's right. So you can take their 500 million stock photos, pick ones you want, and then modify them slightly to make them more on your brand. Change colors or add an object in, for example.
Yeah, so you can add your products in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just drop them into their existing library. And you can also, similar to the other image generators, you can use your own image as like a style guide for what you're looking to create as well. So like how much does it cost, that kind of thing. The subscription gives you 1 year access and 12,000 generations.
That's right. That's their sort of standard package that they sell.
And that's aimed at more kind of enterprise like brands. But somewhere that's really great to get started, which is a really good tip that Tom gave us, is that the iStock version, which is like the other brand of Getty, you get the same functionality.
That's right.
But it's aimed at individuals and freelancers. So the price is much lower.
Yeah, so
it's
a good place to
good
place to test it out.
So we're going to be testing that when we're back in the UK for sure.
Yeah, so along with Adobe Firefly, another great option for image generation that is, content safe, copyright safe. So definitely worth looking out. And many brands and many agencies will already have Getty Images stock subscriptions. So great way to get started.
Yeah.
So we also saw Leonardo.ai, another image generator that some of you might have used. They were showing off their new product photo generator on some giant touch screens where you could have a description and reference image of your product. You could then pick various different visual styles with these giant buttons that you could press. You could sketch a shape using your hand on the screen, and then it would generate an image to go with it.
That's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool, but it did reinforce something for us, which is you definitely needed some skill to use it. We saw people generating some things that looked like a complete dog's dinner because they're not skilled at prompting, they're not skilled at thinking about how to use image generators. So it definitely helped to remind us why we have to provide training on these things.
Yeah, for sure. But the horrendous images that were generated definitely drew people over to their stand.
When you have 3 80-inch touchscreens, then that helps.
Yeah. So is that enough about South by Southwest, Sydney?
I think that's the most relevant stuff for you guys.
Yeah. So like, what else is going on with AI tools right now? We talked a bit about image already. Should we talk about text?
Sure. Well, the big news in text AI at the moment is OpenAI ChatGPT have released Canvas, which is a new feature within ChatGPT that somewhat mimics what Claude have been doing for a little while with their artifacts. So when you ask a prompt with ChatGPT, it will actually create its output in a sort of separate window alongside your prompt that you can then go in and edit and modify and ask it to generate new sections of, for example. So it's a lot more flexible than sort of cutting and pasting in and out of documents. So what you can do is, if you ask it to generate some text for you, perhaps you're planning a workshop with a client and you get the workshop outline in the window, you can then you can suggest edits to that. You can highlight sections of text and ask it just to change that section of the text. You can ask it to change the length of the response that it's given you. You can ask it to change the sort of reading comprehension level of what it's given you. So you can make it simpler or more complex, depending on your audience. You can ask it to change the tone of voice of different sections, for example, and you can even ask it to add emojis for you social post writers out there.
You can ask it to translate just one little bit. I've been using it quite a lot, and I think that ability to just fine tune just one sentence or one paragraph is like amazing, rather than needing to reprompt or take some from a previous answer and some from the next answer.
And you can edit the text manually yourself as well, if there's just using a word that you don't like, for example.
Yeah, it's great.
So it makes it much more flexible to use ChatGPT outputs without having to sort of cut and paste in and out of a Google Doc or something like that. So how do you turn it on? You need to be on one of the paid plans for ChatGPT, which if you've been on one of our activation classes, you will know that you should be anyway. But you go to the drop down top left where it says the model name. So for most people, it will say ChatGPT 4.0. Click on that. And in the drop down, you'll see ChatGPT 4.0 with Canvas brackets beta. Yes, this is a beta product. So it does sometimes have some slight hiccups. You ask it to regenerate one little bit of the text and it actually regenerates the whole lot occasionally. But it's pretty good and definitely worth experimenting with.
Yeah, for sure. Should I talk a bit about Perplexity? Because there's been some updates there.
That's right.
Again, It's been a lot of change in AI. Oh, we've got some drilling going on next door. That's very well timed.
Okay, well, let's see if you can hear that.
So Perplexity. At the start of the summer, we saw Perplexity launched the Pro Search. It got upgraded, and alongside the Quick Search option. So the Quick Search is really good if you just want something quick and really efficient information.
If you've got like a simple query, you just want to know, how many bus drivers are there in London or something.
What's the answer to this one discrete thing? But if you want to do more detailed research, for instance, if you're a strategist, and you need to do some deep searching on the internet, almost like you asking like a research assistant to scour the web for you, just to do some like desktop research, then the Pro plan is really, really good. It brings back like a really comprehensive report and analysis. It delivers like much more length, more precise than the Quick Search, more precise insights, and it links to like a broader range of sources that are all trustworthy sources. You don't need to go and like validate them. It gives you the links to it.
And it'll take you step by step kind of how it's got to the answer as well, so you can see where it's been going.
Really transparent. So that's really cool. But yeah, what's the new part, Jules?
Yeah, so that was back in the summer. Right now, what they've done in the last couple of weeks is launched 2 new features called Spaces and Internal Knowledge Search. And they're pretty straightforward. They kind of do what they say. So Internal Knowledge Search allows you to search include your own documents in the search as well as the web. So if you're working for a particular brand and you have some research that they have done, for example, or other information about the company that you're working for, you can upload that as one of the documents that Perplexity will use in generating its answers. And it will keep that private just to you. So you can use proprietary information now combined with web search to generate Perplexity's answers, which makes it really powerful.
Cool. So you can do it all in one place rather than doing that comparison outside of Perplexity.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a great option. The next feature that they've released is Spaces, which is a bit like projects or custom GPTs, if you like. So you can create a space for a particular client, if you like, and then share that space with other people who are working on that client within your agency, and you will all have access to that space, so you can see the searches and results that other people have had. That's
great, actually.
Yeah. So and it also then combines with that internal knowledge search. So a particular space could have the client documents for a particular client, and another space could have the documents for another client and be shared with a different team. So it allows you to get much more structured and scalable in kind of how you use Perplexity in your organization.
So that's more flexible than ChatGPT.
Yeah, well, ChatGPT allows you to share custom GPTs with individual people.
Yeah.
But this is, I guess, the Perplexity equivalent.
Yeah.
And that ability to combine proprietary data with web search, organize it into projects, and share those projects with the relevant team makes it a much more powerful tool now.
Yeah, super cool. Shall we talk a bit about Notebook LM and what they've been doing? We talked quite a bit about it in last month's episode because we are super fans. Notebook LM is made by Google, which we talked about last time, and it allows you to look at your source data that you give it, and it only looks at that. It doesn't do web scouring. So again, it's a really useful tool for research, particularly. But the thing that really captured everyone's attention was the fact that with the information you give it, it will create a really easy listening podcast out of it. So you can listen to the information in a summarized way in a conversation between two people, a bit like this, I guess.
Yeah, if you haven't tried it, try it. It really is one of those AI wow moments the first time you do it.
It really is. But they have, over the last month, improved that podcast experience. Before, you couldn't have any control over the podcast. You couldn't it just was what it was.
You couldn't choose what length it was.
You click the podcast button and it there you got the podcast. But now you can customize it. You can customize the audio overviews with you give it instructions, essentially. And you can also experiment with things like tone and target audience, the specific topics you want it to focus on, and the sources you want it to look at. So that is like a massive, massive upgrade from what it was just a month ago.
Yeah, so that podcast feature is now more than just a novelty. It's starting to actually become useful.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what people make of that. And Google have obviously got a very powerful speech model now, and it'll be interesting to see how else they start using that across their product suite.
Good thought. Yeah. I'm just going to put something on the screen, actually. So we write a newsletter as well, an email newsletter that's called Spark Intelligence, and last month we created a podcast out of it as well. So you could, instead of reading the email, you could listen to it. It's on the screen. We just did it once last month, and that was that wasn't with the custom podcast, that was with standard podcast. So this next one we will do with the custom podcast. Let's see the difference, but you might want to give it a listen, see what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me take that down. Right. Enough about text tools. Should we think about images again?
Sure. So one new image tool that I think is very relevant for everyone that watches us on this show is Pimento. I met with the founder of Pimento over Zoom last month. They're based in Paris. They're a team of 8 developers, and they've been bringing some of the functionality that the big network agencies are developing with their in-house models and making that available to everybody. So what that means is, unlike Midjourney, where it's a bespoke custom model that nobody has access to, and you can only interact with it through prompts and using image guidelines, for example, what Pimento allow you to do is actually train your own model on your own images using stable diffusion, which is what's going on in the background. So that's pretty interesting. So what it allows you to do is take existing images and modify them. It allows you to take your existing brand library and generate more images based on your text prompts and expand your asset base. It allows you to even put clothing that you've photographed onto individuals that you've generated, so you can start to use it to create fashion imagery, for example, and you're starting to get some of the power that these massive investments from the network agencies have given their brands. So it's definitely worth having a look at. I've tinkered around with it a bit so far. I haven't really used it for real, but the founder did give me a bit of a tour, and it looks pretty powerful, and I'm definitely going to be having a go with it properly next month. So,
just to the use case for that would be like, if I had my client's image library and I wanted to adjust some images or create new images from that in a safe environment, I could do it using Memento.
Yeah, okay. So none of your imagery gets shared with other models. It's all proprietary and safe to you, which is great. And you can go about building this kind of thing in-house using Comfy UI, which is the interface for getting the most control out of Stable Diffusion, but it does require having some technical expertise on your team and some pretty beefy computers with very powerful graphics processing units. These guys do it all through a simple web interface. They host all of the complexity at their end, so you don't have to. So you can try it out for free. It gives you some limited generations for free just to test it. But for $32 a month, you get a subscription that gives you up to 5 custom models. So you could use it for 5 different brands, for example, and up to 200 image generations a day. And a license to use the outputs for commercial use. So I think that's a really relevant tool to go and try. So for those of you working with imagery and brand imagery for the brands that you're working with, that could be a really good solution, and a step on from Midjourney in many cases.
Yeah, brilliant. Fab. I think that's everything on images now.
That is, yeah, we've already talked about
video.
Yeah, because we've done Getty, we've done Memento.
2 image segments.
Right.
Let's just do
video.
Yeah. So we got big news from Adobe and Meta and Minimax on the AI video front. And as we know, Adobe, alongside Getty as well, on the image side, champion copyright safe. That's their kind of key USP. And that's been around their Firefly AI model, and they're extending that to video now.
That's right. So why is this a big deal? Because right now, none of the video generation tools that are out there are copyright safe for clients, if you like. They're all trained on data that's been scraped off the web, and you don't know where your data goes when you put it into the machine. And so Adobe's Firefly video model is going to be trained only on Firefly Adobe stock. So they have the license to use it in that way, and they're going to integrate it straight into Creative Suite. So you'll be able to access it directly through Premiere Pro, for example, if you're a video editor, and you'll be able to use it in other tools as well, like Adobe Express if you're doing social posts and things like that. So if you're using generated video for commercial work, then that's probably a pretty good option to check out. It's in beta at the moment. You can get on the wait list, and it's going to drop for real in the next month or so. But they've got demos out on the website now. So that's a really good option.
Cool. And Meta have been pushing their Llama set of open source large language models for the last year, but now they're pushing AI. Pushing video as well. Sorry, you can tell I'm jet lagged. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So Meta provide a series of large language models called Llama. Most of us haven't used them directly because they're open source and tend to be used by the kind of tools that call a large language model through an API. So you don't really prompt it directly, but some of the tools, but some of the tools you use might have Llama going on in the background. But what they've dropped just now is movie gen. So it's their way of sort of being relevant again in the AI arms race, and it's a video generation model that sounds very impressive. It's actually a collection of 4 models. There's movie gen video, movie gen audio, personalized movie gen video, and movie gen edit. So
it's quite complicated.
Basically movie gen. And what can it do? So some of the stuff is stuff we've seen before in Runway, for example. So it can generate 1080p video clips up to 16 seconds long, with realistic lighting and movement and sort of high quality aesthetics. So, that's good, but we've seen it before. And then Movie Gen Edit allows you to edit existing video or video that you've just generated by in-painting or extending clips, etc. So all of that is pretty similar to what you can do with Runway and some of the other models right now. But there is some interesting new stuff too. So first of all, there is Movie Gen Audio. And what this does is automatically generate the audio to go alongside the clip that you've generated, or multiple clips that you've generated. It can do up to 45 seconds of audio in one go. So you could edit your film from multiple AI clips that you've created, have a 45-second brand film or commercial, for example, and then this will automatically generate synchronized audio to go with it. So for example, if a car passes through the scene, you'll hear the engine go by. If you see somebody walking, you will hear the footsteps.
So it's sound effects.
It will create all of the Foley, we call it in film production, to go with that and make it sound real. And it will also generate background music as well if you want. And that's actually pretty powerful and massively time-saving. And it's actually quite good in the demos. It can even create sounds of things that are off camera where it seems appropriate. So if you're on the beach but you can't see the sea, you might still hear the crashing waves. So adds a lot of realism to what you're doing and saves a vast amount of time for all you video editors out there. Second killer feature is the personalized Movie Gen model. So you can upload a photo of yourself and it will then generate video of you as the main character in the film. So you can then do prompting, get a generated clip, but the person in the clip will look like you. And
this is scary.
So you can see how obviously Meta, of course, own Instagram and Facebook, two of the biggest social platforms out there, full of creators. And so you can see how this is a very powerful technology for creators to have themselves appear in all sorts of different scenes.
Is this under wraps until after the US elections? Or is this out?
It is, well, that's a great question. So how do you actually access it? So right now,
just thinking about deep fakes and things.
So right now, it's actually only being released to developers. And in fact, they're collaborating with a Hollywood movie studio, Blumhouse Productions, who are the guys behind horror films like Get Out and The Purge. I don't really like horror films, but Get Out was pretty good.
You wouldn't catch me watching that.
And so they're working with Casey Affleck and other like high-profile filmmakers in Hollywood to build Gen AI video into their workflows. So I think they're trying to indicate that they are sort of creator friendly. They're working directly with big name directors in Hollywood. But I'm sure that in time we will see these tools released for Instagram and Facebook, and being able to use, creators will be able to create powerful videos all of their own. And if you remember, last month we talked about YouTube and Hollywood on a big collision course. This is just another hand grenade that's dropped into the mix. So Hollywood studios are going to be trying to work out how they use this technology, and individual creators are going to be dropping feature films made with this stuff pretty soon.
Wow. Okay. So one of the video tools we haven't talked about for a while is Sora, which was OpenAI's video model. It's kind of gone a lot quieter since it was, there was a lot of talk about it at the beginning of the year, wasn't there?
Yeah, so OpenAI demoed Sora back in February, I think it was. And at the time it made a big splash because it was the first time we'd seen realistic AI video generation. And it was pretty good and everybody was slightly blown away. But here we are, Sora has still not been released.
What's happened?
And in the meantime, we've had Runway Gen 3, we've had Kling, we've got Minimax now, which I'll talk about in just a sec. And then we've also got this new Meta model as well. So what's going on with Sora? Why haven't we seen it yet?
When the market's got way more crowded.
So we understand that OpenAI have been talking to Hollywood studios about this stuff. But Sam Altman last month announced that they're actually retraining the model because they need it to be able to create longer clips with faster generations and create more natural motion. So I have a feeling that they're feeling that they're not actually competitive with some of the models that are already out there now, and they need to kind of go back to it. So what we're seeing is, ChatGPT innovating on the large language front with Canvas now, and with the O1 model with logical reasoning that dropped a month or so ago. But on the video model, although they were pioneering it at one stage, they now seem to be a little bit on the back foot with it. So let's see what happens there.
Let's see if something bigger and better comes out. Do you want to talk about Minimax?
And Minimax is a new model that's just hit as well. And what people are loving about Minimax is the super realistic animation of characters. And sometimes if you are a Runway user out there, you can put a picture into Runway, ask it to animate the picture, and actually a lot of the motion is quite static. Sometimes people don't even do anything when you put them in there, and you wonder why you bothered making a video of it. It's quite hard to then control the motion that you do get. So Minimax creates very animated characters which are very lifelike and can be a lot of fun. You do get a bit of morphing at times, but it's definitely worth a look. And on that note about animation, literally this morning, as I was putting the notes for this show together, we saw that Runway have released their motion capture tool, where you can now film yourself, even just using your webcam, for example, or you can use it with a more professional setup, where you can perform the motions of a character and then upload a still image, and Runway will animate the character to mirror the motion that you have already created. So
nice.
So video tools are getting more and more powerful every day. So every time you see one that looks a little bit odd, it won't be odd for long. This stuff is advancing really fast and actually starting to become really practical. Now you can control the animation of a character. You can get realistic audio to match the background that your characters are, the environment that your characters are in. So, AI generated video is in some cases going to start to become a useful substitute for shooting live action. So
I can't believe how much it's like literally in 2 months or 3 months since we started doing this show.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to start doing it more frequently, actually, because there's just too much stuff to get through in half an hour once a month.
Totally.
So maybe we'll bump up the frequency.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of minutes left.
Whew.
And you've given a lot of information there. But AI has, as well as being in the AI news, which we keep up with a lot, it's also been in the big news as well. Something to do with Nobel Prizes.
Yeah, that's right. So the Nobel Prize for Physics last week was awarded to Geoffrey Hinton, who is sometimes known as the godfather of AI, and John Hopfield for their, I quote, foundational discoveries and inventions that enable machine learning with artificial neural networks. So these guys invented neural networks back in the 90s, and here we are 30 years later, and they are what is powering all of these AI tools that we're seeing today. So it's been a little bit controversial because some people have claimed that it's not actually physics, but it undeniably shows the importance of this technology that has been recognized by the Nobel Committee.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then the other big bit of news was OpenAI closed their largest venture capital round in history.
That's right. So OpenAI, the most popular AI tool out there is ChatGPT. It's now generating something like $3 or $4 billion a year in revenue, but they are burning more than $5 billion a year on building and training the models. So they needed more cash. So they went out and managed to get a cool $6.6 billion raised, and valuing the company at $157 billion, the most valuable startup ever created. And they reckon that next year they will generate $11 billion in revenue and $100 billion by 2029.
Wow, I think that represents how much of a shift AI is and how much we all need to keep up with it.
And in all of that growth, it's obviously pretty turbulent in startup world because Sam Altman is now the only founder of OpenAI left working there. So last month we saw Mira Murati, the chief technology officer, leave, and she's now raising $1 billion to start her own business. And we also saw John Schulman leave in August and Ilya Sutskever in May. So lots of internal turmoil, but never write them off. They're now the most valuable startup that the world has ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy that those two things can be happening at once, isn't it? right, we've got like 30 seconds left, and I've got one more really interesting piece of news as well. That AI has been in the headlines for investing in nuclear power.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk to our clients and creative agencies are often B Corps, we often talk about the energy implications of AI, of using AI. So I think this is really interesting.
Yeah, so we've had a number of questions when we do our activation sessions about what is the energy footprint of these things. And as B Corps, many of you guys are working for B Corp companies and you need to account for that. So we've seen, what have we seen? We've seen Microsoft have announced that they're going to build an AI data center in Pennsylvania right next to the infamous 3 Mile Island nuclear plant, where there was an accident back in the 70s, or nearly an accident back in the 70s. So they're reactivating that plant and going to be running that from 2029, I think. We've seen Amazon cut deals for the development of small nuclear reactors that will be local to an individual data center. They expect those to be live from 2030. And we've even seen Microsoft get into the nuclear game as well, signing deals. Sorry, I mentioned Microsoft. Google have got into signing deals around nuclear power as well. So why are they doing this? They're doing this for, they are going to become huge energy users, and nuclear at the moment is the only way to get carbon neutral energy at that scale on a reliable basis, where you're not having to rely on the sun shining or the wind blowing. So they're placing big bets on nuclear power. None of these deals are coming into effect anytime soon. I think the first one's going to come on in about 2028, which I think is the Microsoft 3 Mile Island deal. But it does mean that they are going to be using carbon neutral power for a lot of their data. So for those of you that are B Corps and worried about carbon footprint, that's good news. How you feel about nuclear power in the mix is up to you. Obviously, it has significant cleanup costs to think about. Nothing like something being radioactive for the next 100,000 years. But it is perhaps better than burning coal or oil. So something to think about there.
For sure. Okay. So we have run over time.
2 minutes over time. Thank you for your patience, everyone. But there was a lot to get through today.
There's loads. So yeah, this is our, I guess, signing off from Sydney. But before we do that, should we just turn around the camera, see if you can see the view?
Yeah. So just before we go and hit the beach, you can see a little bit of Sydney Harbour there in the background from our apartment. Whoa, it's a bit seasick. There we go. And back.
We're back in the UK in a couple of days' time. So we'll be broadcasting live from UK next time.
Back in the rain. See you then.
See you then.